Hello and welcome to a yin yoga session. I have my beautiful assistant Pear helping me out here today. So grateful. And we're doing a yin sequence on the lungs and the large intestines. So find your comfortable seat on your mat. You might need a block to sit on if you're sitting behind your hips. Just elevate your hips by sitting on something, a block or a blanket or a pillow. And then you want to sit on it as if you're about to fall off. So it helps tilt your pelvis. That'll ease your spine to lift up nice and tall. And then bring your hands to heart center. And we're going to start today with just coming into seated position with the Anahata Mudra. So you have the base of your hands glued together, and then you spread out the rest of your hands like a flower opening in the spring. Beautiful. Great. Now, root down through your sit bones to rise up through the crown of your head and close your eyes. And wherever you are, just take a couple moments to just really get here. Feel your breath. Notice as soon as your attention lands on your breath, it often starts to get a little longer, a little fuller. So this mudra is the heart mudra. And you can feel the effort it takes to open up your fingers. It echoes maybe sometimes the effort we have to use to open up our heart again. So no matter what circumstances you're finding yourself in, allow your next 10 breaths to be unhurried, full, and reaching. Breathing through your nose. And then after your 10th breath, just take your hands, your eyes still closed, and take your hands to wherever you need to bring your practice, to bring healing or energy or just change. And you'll find that maybe that's in your physical body, maybe it's in your emotional body, or maybe it's in your mental body or even your spirit body, but you intuitively know exactly where your hands go. And continue to find a nice full breath here. Maybe you feel the warmth underneath your hands, as if your hands are delivering the warmth and fire nature of your heart to wherever you're putting your hands. And when you're ready, bring your hands to your knees. Take one more full, deep breath. And with your inhale, flutter your eyes open. Boop, 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 boop. And then the first posture we're going to do today is we're going to come into a wide-kneed child's pose. So you might find it useful to just pivot on your mat so that your knees can stay on the yoga mat. You can even double up the yoga mat underneath your knees if you're over 20. And you can use a blanket or something in front of you if you want. So you take your knees wide. And then first slide forward and come to your elbows. And then you're going to thread your right arm behind your left elbow, letting your right ear come to the ground. And we're coming into our first yin pose. So we want to come into this in a yin style. The first principle is you really find the shape that suits your body. We all know that our eyes are different, our fingerprints are different, our DNA is different, but that means all the way through we are different. So the way our hips are shaped, the way the femurs are shaped, the way that the turn of the head on top of the bone is different for each one of us. So you really have to take the form of the yoga as an ideal and then see how your particular uniqueness shapes into it. Once you have found the shape, that's right, you can relax into it. So after you thread your right arm behind you, maybe you still have the freedom to reach your left arm up and wrap it behind your back. Your fingers might tuck conveniently to your inner right thigh. Take a full breath here and just let it sigh out through your mouth and feel your body relax. It's amazing how much your body believes you. Once you feel that stillness, a little softness that at the exhale delivered, you can accentuate this and come into the second principle of our yin posture, which is to become still and quiet. You can imagine like the surface of a lake settling on a windless day. Then the final principle in our yin practice is to come into the right shape for our body, to become soft and still, letting our effort recede. And then the effort, instead of coming into a physical pushing and pulling, it comes into cultivating a steadfastness so you can commit to staying in the posture. So commitment is a big word, and sometimes as soon as we hear it, we start to freak out a little bit. In our poses, we won't stay in a pose ever longer than 10 minutes, but usually it's just 5, sometimes a little shorter. And the reason we do this is to go deep into our body, where the myofascias, where specifically our ligaments, where one ligament attaches one bone to the other. With your next inhale, unwind and come back to center, leaving your knees as they are. And then up onto your elbows. Slide your left arm behind your right elbow. Allow your left ear to come to the ground. And hang out here for a bit, and when you're ready, you can wrap your right arm back behind you. So allow your breath to be soft. But one of my teachers, Sarah Powers, she talks about how you can have a soft Ujjayi breath, it's basically a soft, victorious breath, which means that you can engage your Mula Bandha, your root lock, maybe lightly pull in your Uddiyana Bandha, and breathe in the back of your throat as if you are whispering loudly. So you can feel kind of the vocal cords expand a little bit. So I can breathe, normally, or try to breathe quietly, or I can try to breathe to sound more like, I guess it would be like a little Darth Vader. Notice where your attention is. Often we are just pulled to our own suffering, like a magnet. But you'll notice with this quiet effort, you can actually bring your attention to other places. Allow your attention to move around and observe. And then when you feel balanced-ish, you can unwind this posture and slide your knees together and just take your arms back behind you, coming into embryo pose. So that's a child's pose with your arms behind you. Your head relaxing. This should release your shoulders a little bit. And then inhale, lift up your head and lift up and just spin around to come into Sphinx. So you stretch your legs back. If your lower back is chill, you can take your legs as wide as the yoga mat. If your lower back is a little bit more tender, slide your legs closer together. You're going to reach your elbows forward so they're just slightly in front of your shoulders and shoulder distance apart. Now, you can even take a little moment of yang and effort your chest forward. Feel the expansion of your heart and your lungs here. Let your shoulders actively reach back and drop down your spine, pulling your belly in, letting your hips drop, and then soften into the pose. So Sphinx is a very simple pose. And just like in our vinyasa practice during downward facing dog, Sphinx is the kind of pose where you can just be like, ooh, I got it, and get you out of there and just pay attention to something else. Instead, take your effort and bring your attention here. Move through your body. Feel your breath. So we're focusing on the lungs and the large intestines today. But just like hitting a note on the piano, all of our meridians vibrate and kind of sound if we're doing a yin practice. But the melody of our practice is the lung and large intestine organ pair. The lungs are the yin organ, and the large intestines are the yang organ. And so naturally, since it's a yin practice, we focus mostly on the yin organ. But the yin organs are also, they are the organs that have kind of a deeper reaching nature in your body. So while both the lungs and the large intestines do physical work in your body, there's a lot more of an immediate kind of energetic, emotional, and mental, even spiritual kind of reach that the yin organs have. With our lungs, it's quite obvious. We know that it's only a couple minutes that we can survive without breath. And immediately that immediacy touches on our emotions. And even notice when you like someone asks you to think about something, what do? You often will take a deep breath to start the process. Our breath roots us in the moment, roots us in the present. And then take 5 more full deep breaths here. And after your 5th breath, settle down to the yoga mat. Wiggle your hips side to side. And it's totally socially acceptable to moan and groan after a yin pose. My lovely friend and teacher, Paul Grilly, talks about this is the moment for the anti mantras. Why me? Why does this happen only to me? Though right now that sentiment is so not true. We are in a place where we're feeling things all over the world in this together. Now, take your right arm out to the right. So you're going to stretch your arm straight out from your shoulder. And then turn your gaze away from your arm, looking to your left. Hug your knees up to your chest. You might need a pillow so that your head can rest on something. You don't want your head hanging. And at any point in these instructions, you can stop. Like you could stay here if that's enough for you today. Or maybe you're ready for a little bit more and you can step your left foot behind your right leg onto your yoga mat like you're stamping on the ground and your knees pointing up to the ceiling. If you feel like going a little further, reach your top arm up to the ceiling, stretch long, really active like you're growing your nails longer, and then spin your palm behind you and reach down and see if you can hold hands with yourself without significantly lowering your hand. So you might have to like fumble around and reach for it, not sure where it is. But once you find the position, effort your arms up towards your shoulder again. And if your hands are closer to your hips than to your shoulders, then don't hold on to the bind. Maybe bringing your chin towards your chest to let your head relax a little bit more. And you can also keep going and actually bring your right foot onto the ground, both knees pointing up, and eventually you might be able to have both feet on the ground and twisting your hips so much that both your hips are on the ground while you're holding your hands behind your back. And still, we're in this together. So the lungs have this amazing position in our body. They are kind of the bridge between the known and the unknown. They are, in traditional Chinese medicine, they refer to the lungs as the tender organ. And part of it is the fragileness of our lungs, that with every breath, it's kind of a rebirth. With every breath, there is life renewed. But that also points at there's going to be a time where that next breath doesn't come. It's tender. This moment right here is full and complete and fleeting. So the special place of the lungs is we can actually take our attention and on purpose slow down our breath, which in turn slows our heartbeat down, calms our whole body. The other side is we can also hyperventilate. We can use our breath to stimulate the fire and activity in our body. All right. I always check to make sure people's arms aren't turning blue. We're about that at the edge. So roll back onto your belly. Moan and groan. And reach your left arm out to the side. And before you get too far into it, just notice if you're making up a story about how it's going to be or how it's going to feel. And instead move into your observation and notice what's different about one side from the other side. So your left arm points straight back. Hug your knees up to your chest. You're on the outside of your left thigh. And then you're going to step your right foot onto the ground, right behind your left leg, knee pointing up to the ceiling. And then maybe stretch your right arm up to the ceiling. Turn your palm to face the ground and reach back and see if you can hold hands without significantly lowering your arms. You might need to bring your chin a little closer to your chest to relax your neck more. Do you need a bigger pillow? Okay. So our lungs kind of bridge this realm of what we know and what we don't know. So you can imagine as we look at the human being, you can imagine, I know maybe this doesn't work. Let's see. So you can imagine really that the spirit like incarnates into you. Like sometimes I have this picture of like it coming in through the head. And as you move down into your body, it's as if you lose consciousness. So I can close my eyes on purpose. Can't close my nose other with my hand. Can't close my ears other than with my hands. But I can close my mouth. I can, I have so much hyper awareness in my head to the point where I process nearly everything through the brain or through the eyes. We're so fixated on our senses and the awakeness there. But as we move down into our body, we can, breathe on purpose, help our heartbeat slow down. But then as we get lower, we have less and less control. We have less and less sensitivity, actually. So we only notice our, stomach if it's aching or hurting. Well, most of them, our kidneys, or, even though our kidneys move as we breathe, we don't really think about them. And thank goodness we don't have to think about them for them to work. And then as you move lower, we have our abdominals and our intestines, our small intestines, large intestines, and even our sex organs. Like we have some semblance thinking we know what we want, but really there is a world that lies below our consciousness that's activated in our body. Feel about the same? And then roll onto your belly, moaning and groaning, wiggling your fingers. Make sure they all still work. And then slide onto your belly, wiggle your hips or wiggle your toes, whatever feels like it will make you feel more alive. So the lungs and the heart really work together in such a major way, even that, in diagrams, like they're very separate. But in actual life, they're much more kind of around each other, and it's harder to pull them apart. And so the yin sequence are often very similar for the heart and the lungs. So the next posture we're going into is actually Anahata Asana. So it is the heart pose or the heart seat, if you just directly translate the Sanskrit. So you come up onto your hands and knees, line up your hips over your knees, and then you're going to stretch your arms forward. So you might have to take your knees a little further back. And you're going to stretch your arms forward. Keep your hips back over your knees and let your chest sink down to the ground. Beautiful. The sensation you want to have is feeling an expantiousness around your chest, as if like your heart is reaching down to the earth. You can feel kind of your armpits stretching a little bit. And as we come into the pose, follow the principles. So you first find the right shape. On purpose, become still. And then commit to staying there. So an image that I've been having a lot lately, and inspired from the words of Carolyn Mace, she talks about the world breathing together. And in your posture here, just take a couple moments and notice your breath, and then turn your attention. Maybe you're lucky enough to be practicing with someone. Maybe you can hear them breathing, hopefully not breathing. But I keep having this imagination, not just of me breathing, not just me and my partner breathing, but letting that expand and feeling that breath roll into the earth, into the trees, into the birds, into the waters and the oceans, like all creatures, from the smallest ones we can't imagine to the biggest ones we can't imagine. And this sensation of breathing together honors the truth of what's up. You know, we're breathing one air. Like, yes, pollution might be different here in, we live in rural Sweden compared to in the city in Hong Kong, or, New York City, or like the momentary, like the pollution might be different, but it's all from the same source, with all in this world together. We can nearly imagine the whole earth breathing as one. In traditional Chinese medicine, when our lungs and large intestine meridians are suffering, one of the emotional responses we have to that stress in our body is that we experience grief, and specifically grief around loss. And it's not that grief is bad. There's absolutely a place for grieving, for being sad, for truly feeling the loss of things, of people, of places, of time. But when it becomes out of balance, then it becomes corrosive in our body. With your next inhale, slide forward, moan and groan a little bit, wiggle around. Feel breath coming into the back of your lungs. And then you're going to bring your hands underneath your shoulders and shift your hips back to your heels. Cross your ankles, roll over your crossed ankles. And we're coming into yin fish. So you want to bring the bottoms of your feet together. You have your heels 2 hands length away from your groin. And I always like to start this pose by first lifting up my chest, holding onto my shins. So this is definitely a yang moment. So lift your chest up, let your head drop back, and then take your elbows back behind you and lay back so that you're propped up on your elbows. Your elbows are again underneath your shoulders. Your head's relaxing back if that's okay for your neck. Different ways to use bolsters or blankets here is you can put blankets underneath your legs, like right here, to help support if it's too intense with your hips opening. And if it's uncomfortable for your neck, dropping your head back, you can keep your chin to your chest. So right now, this grief around loss is actually very interesting because it goes together with lung disorders and struggles. So in this dynamic system of the human body and the human being, when we are emotionally really taxed or mentally really taxed or in a spot in our biography where we are spiritually taxed, those challenges and sufferings can affect our physical body. When we move our body, when we practice with our body, our physicalness can actually change our emotionality, can change our ability to think and free us up. So it's a dynamic web. You have the layer of our physical body, the gross matter, and then we have a layer of an energetic body. We have a sheath of our emotional body, our feeling body, and then our mind body, which is mostly mental. And then we have our spirit body, and these are the terms in traditional Chinese medicine. I can affect any one of those bodies through the other bodies. Just like we all are so interconnected. And this moment in time is showing us this in a way that we can't unsee it. You know, what's in one is in the whole, or this idea of, you know, every single human being not just a reflection of each other, but of the whole world, the whole universe even. Allow your upper body to come down to the ground. Take one hand to your heart, one hand to your belly. Just for a little bit longer, let your feet stay where they are. And then stretch your legs long, relax your arms. Just take a moment here on your back. Stretch your legs long. Wiggle, breathe, cry, groan. And then hug your knees up to your chest. Maybe lift up your knees and kiss your knees. Thank you for getting you this far in life. And then just keep hugging your right knee in and stretch your left leg long on the ground. And then roll to the outside of your left thigh, coming into the twist here. So let your top knee drop. lengthening your bottom leg. And your gaze is going to go either straight up to the ceiling or all the way to your right. Take a full breath in here, and with your exhale, just feel your body believe you. When our lungs are thriving, when our lungs and large intestines are physically doing well, what it supports in our body, what it supports in our being, is it allows us to be courageous. And it really allows us to be filled with reverence. So you can imagine that your breath actually delivers you the capacity to have wonder and awe. And this idea with reverence is reverence, like, is that you can discover something above you, bigger than you, and be able to humble yourself in front of that. Like, have you ever had that feeling when you're out watching a sunset and it's just so beautiful, you want to eat it or lick it, or you can't actually possess it. I mean, we try to capture it with our cameras and whatnot, but that moment is so extraordinary. It's painted in all these colors. It has a mood with the light, and we feel this sense of awe and reverence in ourselves when we have those moments. And it's this loss of reverence, on the other hand, that actually physically can impact our lungs. Emotionally, help us, let us be stuck in despair. So if you find yourself stuck in grief, kind of fettered in depression, find what it is that allows you to have reverence, allows you to experience something bigger than you. Then hug your knees back to the center. And stretch your right leg long, pulling your left knee close to your armpit. You can even imagine someone pulling on your foot. And then roll your left knee to the right, coming into the twist on the side. One of the handicaps of our time is we've been so well educated in materialism that it's hard for us to conceive or imagine the relationship between the visible and the invisible. I mean, think of some things you can't see. And I'm not just talking like you can't see them because they're microscopic, right? We have these amazing concepts like love or enlightenment. And then as we come into the energetics, we can think about magnetism, electricity. We can think about gravity. And we start to understand, like, these are things we've learned about in our physical sciences. But with the naked eye, we can't touch or grab or feel them, but we know that they affect things. But we want to start to practice and realize that invisible things affect our physical world. So, on one hand, you can have this incredible capacity to pray and to meditate on other people and their healing. Some of the most advanced technology. But on the shadow side, what is it that this world that we have that is now full of electricity, that we already have documented kind of challenges and issues with, but then Wi-Fi and 5G, and what are these invisible forces? What are the consequence of these? Where do they affect our earth physically? So breathe in the challenges, the hardness, the struggle in our life, the grief, and then practice breathing out what you want to see more of. We want to honor this transformative nature of the human being. We start it as babes, as children, like we're given something and we start to play with it. Create with it. So just like we would get like a lump of clay and we could make it into like, I don't know, a rabbit or a dragon or a mermaid. We want to still allow this creativity to kind of seep into every part of our being, so we create the life around us we want to have. And not through just like acquiring things for yourself, but actually creating in a way that is available to others. My good friend Orlin says that the thing you do best, you'll give away for free. We want to start to notice that we have so much capacity, economy, to support others. As like kind of our worship and reverence of the whole. And then roll back onto your back, hug your knees into your chest one more time. Maybe lift up your face and kiss your knees, thank you. And then stretch out into Shavasana. So this is corpse pose. You want to take your legs about as wide as the yoga mat. Like you're about to make a sand angel or a snow angel. And then you're going to close your eyes. Let the ground hold you. Feel your back body supported. And just take into Shavasana with you that you're in the right time, it's no accident, and the right place with the right people. We're in this together. With your next inhale, invite your exquisite breath to the edges of your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. And maybe even think of something you're grateful for that helps a smile spread on your face. With your next inhale, stretch your body long, reaching your hands over your head and your feet away from your hands. And with your exhale, curl into a little ball and then roll onto your left-hand side. Pause for a moment here and feel your vibrancy and the sacredness of your interior. This is the place from which we can all change the world together. Help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Allow your hands to meet at heart center. Root down to rise up. And again, blossom your fingers open into Anahata Mudra. Soften your eyes to close. Empty your breath all the way. And let's take one Om. Take a full inhale. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye and invite the divine love. As we bow forward together, we say, Namaste. And so much noise and love and mayhem. Woo! Practice, practice, practice. All else is coming. And I just want to say, if you want to contribute to me, feel free to go to raystar.com. There's all the information there. TransferWise, PayPal, Swish. But also, if money isn't the way you can be generous, you can share my videos and just figure out a way to support your local yoga teachers. So a lot of people are really have lost everything or lost their jobs and livelihood, just like you. So figure out how to be generous in different ways. So much love.